Conference, the daily noon briefing with Stefan will start promptly. The President of the General Assembly will make a few remarks and then we'll open.
Press briefing.
Conference, the daily noon briefing with Stefan will start promptly. The President of the General Assembly will make a few remarks and then we'll open the floor to questions. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think indeed, ladies and gentlemen of the press and colleagues, it's certainly an honor for me to meet with you today to interact on a number of issues affecting all of us as members of the United Nations, even if we do so virtually. You will recall that one of the very first things we started the presidency with was the very important political declaration on health coverage and its importance, and the wisdom of that declaration, I think, is clear for all of us to see. It was led by Japan and with full support of all the membership. Now, COVID-19 pandemic has, if anyone doubted, indicated the necessity for us to work together closely to deal with global problems, be it in health, in transportation, in education, in energy, in climate issues, on a host of issues. And since the pandemic, life has never been the same for individuals, for communities, and for nations, certainly not for the United Nations. And work had to change in terms of the tempo, but not only the tempo, in terms also of the method of work. But work had to continue for the United Nations, and this was extremely challenging that we are meeting virtually in this hall at the United Nations headquarters in New York with colleagues around the world, especially in Geneva, but also in New York, who are unable to join us in this very important room, indicate the necessity to work together to defeat COVID-19, to also strengthen multilateral cooperation on all matters affecting us as a global community. With the difficulty to work in person, following medical advice globally, the Assembly had to find means to work within the constraints as they are. And to do so, we had to have a decision, 74/544, which allows us to basically take decisions and make resolutions via a silence procedure without normal plenary meetings. It's very important that member states agreed to this, and that allowed us to take important timely decisions and resolutions, 26 so far from the 27th of March. Now, it also put a lot of focus on us to work harder at consensus, because it is very difficult ordinarily to do negotiations. But if we have to move on to get things done, we needed this resolution and this decision, which decision was extended, and that allowed us to have the 26 resolutions and decisions we have so far taken. COVID-19 forced all of us to work differently as we negotiate not the current moment, but we are forced to reflect deeper as to what will happen post-COVID because of the devastation which COVID has brought to social and economic life. This is really why the initiatives taken by member states to have decisions and to have resolutions to guide us post-COVID and also to guide us in going through the current moment, I think, are extremely important, and member states and the Secretariat need to be commended for this leadership. Now, as you know, 2020 is a very critical year for the United Nations. We know we are geared to celebrate the 75th anniversary of our organization. Serious work is going on as to how to have a very robust, forward-looking political declaration to be placed before our heads of state and government on the 21st of September this year as a declaration. Extremely important work is going on this matter, and we are confident that a very important political declaration will be agreed to by all member states. You also know that this 75th year is also coinciding with the 25th year of Beijing, a very important process for the world in terms of inclusion, in terms of gender equality. And we are also celebrating this. At the same time, we are dealing with what we call the super year of nature. Many processes and mandates relating to diversity in the biological world, the whole concern of oceans and stuff related to degradation. These are, again, processes, some of which are being scaled down because of the necessity to observe social distancing. But those that can continue are continuing, and they have continued with virtual meetings. And you have seen virtual meetings have shown what technology can do to get us to solve problems. But it also has shown that technology is not evenly distributed, and it is far easier for some countries to deal with continuity in education than other countries. And this again speaks to the necessity to find means of mutual support, especially for countries that need support in technology to continue to provide for education of children. A lot of countries are able to provide some form of education through virtual means. It's not the case with many countries in the developing world. And I think this again shows why we need to collaborate further in education, in technology, and in all areas of life, in addition to the issues relating to the environment and to other elements that are important for the United Nations. And recalling that the global community has made 2030 an important milestone to achieve the SDGs. And we have entered into the decade of action to deliver on the SDGs. Even before then, we were worried that financing gaps and other encumbrances will make it impossible for many countries to achieve the SDGs in a substantial manner. And now we are hit with COVID-19. It means we should do even more in the areas of cooperation, sharing of information and ideas, and mutual support to guarantee that we are able to achieve SDGs in this 75th year of our organization. I would like to conclude by saying that the General Assembly, as with other organs of the United Nations, is committed to continuing to serve the people and to do everything possible, even under current difficulties, to see that there is business continuity substantially at the United Nations and with UN staff and member states. And this is our undertaking. I would like to conclude by thanking media organizations for their interest in the work that we do at the United Nations. And of course, member states are at the forefront of pushing that we continue to serve the people on this very important platform. I think I will stop here, and I welcome questions relating to the work we do as an assembly and by extension at the United Nations. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President. And we have questions. We'll start with Edie.
Mr. President, thank you so much for doing this briefing on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. And as everyone has been saying today, UNCA certainly expresses our deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones and friends of all those who have been lost by COVID-19. As you yourself said, the pandemic has caused tremendous changes in the way the United Nations is operating. And the biggest change, I am certain, is going to be in the general debate, because the proposals that you've been putting forward, which haven't finally been decided yet, are certainly for a much more scaled back operation. Being that this is the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, my question is, do you envision that the big celebration that was expected to mark this very significant anniversary could be pushed back until next year, so that there still would be a major commemoration of this milestone for the United Nations? And when do you expect to have a final decision on how the general debate in September will be handled? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think two questions. One is the issue of how do we celebrate the 75th anniversary, whether we should, in light of what you think should happen, push it further. The conversation here at the United Nations and with the member states and with all concerned is that we do not know how long things will take to achieve the normality that will allow in-person meetings. But we cannot hold off such an important celebration, because it is an important moment for all of us. And facing challenges is one of the things the UN should do. And then how do we then face this challenge? We face it with creativity and innovation. And on the 26th of June, we'll celebrate properly, given the rules that are in place, the Charter Day. And we will have something to start the conversation concerning the importance of the Charter. And the political declaration is being negotiated, it's being looked at, and the celebration of the 75th anniversary is not conceived as one moment. It's conceived as some activity that can proceed throughout the year, and because it's not a moment, and that's why we should not say we wait until this. This is the conversation this far, and therefore shifting it to another day is simply shifting uncertainty. So the best way is to make it as normal as we can make it, and this is the thinking in the House. The next issue you raised is the general debate. Again, with the general debate, it is the same thinking. What we have is what we have, and we deal with it as it is. We evolve means of getting heads of state and government to talk about important issues as they see them, as they affect us as a global community. In-person meetings are highly unlikely